his first fuel stop. Meanwhile, Kenny Roberts is charging up. He is in 5th spot and working his way along, trying to regain the lead. Number 109 out of the action, and that is John Conklin. A mechanical problem has knocked him out. You were making a point, Dale, about the fact that you had a top-flight pit crew. Let me add the point that you're the only man in history who has won this race twice as a privateer. And we should put that into context. We talk a lot about the factory Yamahas and the factory Hondas, the team bikes that run up front. For years, this race was the exclusive domain. Back in the old days when they used to run on the beach course here at Daytona, it was 2.5 miles down Route 1, A1A on the blacktop, and then hook a left-hand turn off onto the sand of the world's most famous beach and come blasting 2.5 miles back up. They had to wait for the tide to go out so that they could start the race. Those are the historic beach racing days, and back then, it was a battle of those two great old American manufacturers, Harley-Davidson and Indian. Well, those days have all changed. Harley-Davidson came to Daytona. Indian, of course, went to the great hunting ground in the sky, and that's just a fond memory now for those of us who have been around the motorcycle racing game a while. But Daytona revolutionized the sport. Daytona International Speedway, built in 1959, first hosted the motorcycles in 1961, and for a few years Harley dominated, but then the Japanese motorcycles moved in. The great influx of Japanese bikes that came in the 1960s and really strongly in the 1970s translated into racing terms. This field today is dominated by Oriental machines, but most of the guys out there don't have factory dollars. They don't have factory mechanics. They're paying their own bills. The front-running bikes are very high-dollar efforts, and you as a privateer know better than anybody how hard they are to beat.
That's for sure. I tell you, coming here to Daytona as a privateer, it just takes an extreme amount of determination and professional preparation in getting a first-class effort put on the track, being able to outrun these factories, to out-compete with them, and to pull off such a prestigious win like here in the Daytona 200.
You built your motorcycle at a barn up in Whitfield County, Georgia, that was heated by a wood stove with your own 2 hands, and that's one of the best Daytona stories ever. 15 laps are complete. The average speed is 110 miles per hour. The leader is Eddie Lawson. We'll have more action right after this. We are back live at Daytona International Speedway. Kenny Roberts has just been in for a pit stop. Let's go down to the pits and find out that story.
Kenny Roberts just pulled into the pits just a few seconds ago. He pulled up, took on fuel. They took a look at that rear tire. Other people on his crew checked the entire motorcycle over. They did a very fast refueling stop and pushed him off. We got to Kenny Clark, the team manager, and asked him if everything was okay. He said everything is fine. They have no idea what went wrong earlier, and perhaps it was oil on the rear tire. And right now, they are awaiting the leader, Kenny's teammate. Lawson will be in here momentarily.
Kenny Roberts has made his second pit stop of the Daytona 200, and it was a piece of work, Dale. It was perfection.
It was very smooth, very smooth. They gave him about 6 gallons of fuel, checked the rear tire. The Dunlop engineer was on hand there. Kenny nodded his head okay. I had an observer throw him through the binocular, so I think everything's smooth here for Kenny.
Kenny Roberts, of course, is the story of this race on several counts. He shattered the lap barrier of 2 minutes here. No one had ever run that fast around this twisting, turning, 3.87-mile Daytona course. And now the leader is on pit road. Let's go back to Ted Otto.
Eddie Lawson pulls up, stops right on the mark that they put on the pavement. The board is held up for him to run his front wheel into just in case the brakes fade. They put in fuel, top him off, push him out, and there seems to be absolutely no problem with the leader, Eddie Lawson's bike. The crew is very happy with their fast pit stop. How fast did you do it, Ken Clark? How fast was your pit stop?
It was quite good. We were just checking the tires, and everything looks perfect.
Nothing wrong with Kenny Roberts' bike?
Nothing wrong with Kenny Roberts' bike, nothing wrong with Eddie's bike. Everything's running right on the track.
And they're back in first and second place, and the Yamahas are back on the track.
Right behind Eddie Lawson comes Freddie Spencer, who also made his pit stop, the number 19 Team Honda entry, the man who in his first 2 years here led the race. But there is a problem in the Honda pit. That is Ron Haslam's machine. Let's go to Andrew Marriott.
Yes, there is a problem here with Ron Haslam's machine. In fact, first he almost collected Mike Baldwin because Mike Baldwin stalled as he pulled out of the pit. Ron almost collected him, and now Ron seems to have an engine problem as far as I can see. Ron is off the bike, and I will try and get to talk to him just as quickly as I can. But meanwhile, Dave, back to you.
There is an ejected Ron Haslam, the youngster from England that many people view as the British equivalent of Freddie Spencer, the young kid who has come up so quickly and so marvelously through the ranks. This young man did that same thing, but he did it as a dirt tracker. Eddie Lawson made the conversion to road racing, and oh, a near miss. That's that traffic story, Dale.
No kidding there, Dave. He was accelerating hard coming out onto the banking, and I think Dave he had this rider, he was lapping more, anticipated to go in a little higher line, and the guy began to swing back lower on him. That was a near miss for Eddie Lawson.
Lawson is your leader in this race. He has made his pit stop. He has been in and out of the field. Let's get another look at that incident. It was so close. This is the leader, number 21, Eddie Lawson, a moment ago coming out of the infield. Dale?
It's so important for that drive, Dave, coming out onto the banking, and this is something that I think Eddie is really trying to do here. The momentum was carrying him higher and higher up toward the wall.
He came out of it okay. He missed, but it was a near miss. You see the difference in the speeds there. Those yellow bikes are so fast. They're reputed to be some 640 cc's. They are special one-off machines built exclusively as Daytona rocket ships. And after this race is over, they'll be loaded back up and crated up and sent back to Japan. And that's the last time these motorcycles will race. Let me see if Ted Otto has a bit of insight into that. Ted, there's been a lot of talk about how big the engine is in that motorcycle and how thin the cylinder walls are. You got an inside story on that?
Well, they won't tell us exactly, but every time 640 cc's are mentioned, you get a giant smile on their face. You're absolutely right. They're one of a kind. They're YZR Daytona Specials, and these are square fours, and their GP bikes overseas are the new B4s, and they have to be 500 cc's, as Dale Singleton pointed out. But they wanted to run the square fours here because they think they're more dependable. They will go longer distances because the GP races are usually only about 60 miles in duration, and they figured for 200 miles, the square four would be a better bike.
Suddenly, this has become the battle for the lead. Freddie Spencer has charged to the rear wheel of number 21, Eddie Lawson. They are side by side in the Daytona 200. Kenny Roberts is right behind them, and this has turned into a monumental battle, Dale.
Unbelievable. Freddie has made such a tremendous charge from the back to creep right up behind Eddie Lawson, so we're going to get to see some close dueling here coming right up.
Now we begin to see that ballet become hand-to-hand combat. Yes, it's graceful. Yes, it takes tremendous skill and precision to handle a motorcycle at this kind of speed. But when 2 or 3 guys are out there doing it together in the draft and start beating on one another, this becomes a very, very physical combat. We are 19 rounds into a 52-round fight for glory at Daytona, and there is the story. 3 riders, Eddie Lawson, Freddie Spencer, and Kenny Roberts, a trio of road racing superstars, hurdle onto the high banks of Daytona. Kenny Roberts is making a move on the high side of Freddie Spencer, and down low with Eddie Lawson, and that could have took out the entire lead pack. The new leader at the finish line will be Roberts. An unbelievable comeback, Dave.
That was unbelievable the way Kenny went above Freddie Spencer and then come under Eddie Lawson. That was a tremendous move on Kenny's part. That is something that encounters such precision riding at that kind of speed in the draft situation, Dave.
Eddie Lawson has just been gobbled up by 2 of the greatest motorcycle road racers in the world. Let's look at this again. The leader is Lawson. The second place bike, the Honda of Spencer. Up to the top side goes Kenny Roberts as the leader, Lawson, had to go under a lap rider. He drifted out to the outside, and that was the opening through which Kenny Roberts started to take the lead. That is, at that kind of speed, an absolutely awesome experience.
That is the most articulate move I've seen in this race yet, Dave. That was just spectacular.
Well, I'll tell you, we're going to see a lot of those kind of moves before this one is over. This has been a dramatic Daytona 200. So many people expected that somebody would go out and try to be the rocket in this race to set the pace and run away, and a lot of people thought it would be one of these 2 riders, number 2 Kenny Roberts or number 19 Freddie Spencer. Instead, they both had to make early, unexpected pit stops. Now they have come back through the field, and they're running for the lead.
What our viewers are having an opportunity of seeing here this afternoon is very similar to what these 3 great American riders will take to Europe. and stand on our great country's tradition of representing America in the World Championship Grand Prix competition.
Keep in mind that no American had ever won the 500cc World Championship until Kenny Roberts went off as a rookie Grand Prix rider in 1978, brought home that crown. He conquered the world, and the American King indeed became the king of world competition. But bear in mind, Kenny Roberts told us in an exclusive interview prior to the start of this race that this may well be his last Daytona 200. He first came here in 1972. He has a history of incredible frustration in this race, and what we're watching right here is the changing of the guard. At the age of 31, Kenny says this may be his last 200. At the age of 21, the man who pursues him right there, number 19, Freddie Spencer, is the new wonder boy, the future superstar of American road racing, and the two of them are hooked up in a classic battle. You couldn't have written a better Cinderella story in Hollywood than this one right here. They are in a lot of traffic. This should be tricky, Dale.
That is one thing that's going to be a key for Kenny, and I think he has the most advantage in working his traffic, Dave, because when Kenny gets into traffic, he just retains the smooth riding style he always employs on the racetrack, and I think that Kenny will use this traffic to his advantage.
Let's bring you up to date in this exclusive live telecast. First ever live coverage of this, the most dramatic, the most prestigious, and indeed the richest motorcycle race in the world, the $100,000 Daytona 200. We are on the 22nd of 52 laps, lap 22 of 52. The lead battle is between Kenny Roberts and Freddie Spencer, perhaps the two greatest road racers that this country has ever produced. For the first 20 laps of this race, the average speed was 109.701 miles per hour. And bear in mind that right here they are accelerating to a terminal velocity of 180. From there, they have to get onto the brakes and decelerate as they come down the backstretch. You'll see the rider sit up. Robert sits up. The wind hits you in the chest. It's just like a kick in the chest right there, but it helps slow you down, Dale.
Hard braking is something that's a key factor in turning the consistently quick times here. They've hurtling those bikes down the back straightaway and then stopping them the length of 2 football fields down to 70 miles an hour is something that demands such precision, tuning, and accuracy from a rider.
Spencer got caught behind a slower rider line there, and that enabled Kenny Roberts to open up a little bit of an interval. The battle for 4th and 5th spot continuing in this race. Number 28, the bike of Steve Wise, the amazing rookie here from last year. And Mike Baldwin now running 5th. He was the early leader in this race. And then, of course, he fell off the pace. He was not able to maintain that lead pace. He dropped back. Baldwin, who had problems out here on Friday in the Superbike race. You'll see highlights of that coming up later in this triple-header telecast. Remember, we've got an awful lot of action to come here because this is, in fact, not one race but 3 that you will see this afternoon live on TBS. Perhaps the last race for King Kenny Roberts, the yellow-clad leader, and one of many future races for Freddie Spencer. We talked to Freddie Spencer in this race to find out when the racing actually starts.
Yeah, it has, you know. You can do everything you're supposed to do. You can be riding 100%. The motorcycle can be 100%. There's just no problems whatsoever. You go through the whole week without having even so much as just a miss, you know, and you come down to do the 200 miles and the throttle sticks, or it really has been a jinx for me.
That was Kenny Roberts with the story of the jinx that he has suffered here at Daytona. Bear in mind that this is his 11th start on this racetrack. He's run the whole distance, the whole 200 miles with a healthy motorcycle only once, and that year he lapped the field. Freddie Spencer told us that the racing in this race starts from the top, that it has become a 200-mile sprint race. There is no doubt, I don't think, in anybody's mind that these guys are racing right now, Dale. They are going after one another.
There's no doubt, Dave. These guys are at the ultimate. Riding on the ragged edge with Eddie Lawson in hot pursuit right here.
That is 3rd place. Eddie Lawson chasing the 2 leaders. When you see it in the shot right there moving out onto the high banks, they are averaging a nearly 110 miles an hour around this racetrack. The precision and the skill that it takes to handle a motorcycle on this circuit is just incredible. And here are the 2 best in the world doing it right now as Kenny Roberts takes Freddie Spencer into turn 1 of this 9-turn twisting, field circuit and the 2.5-mile high bank tri-oval. That is the Daytona 500 stock car battleground. This week the story is all motorcycles, as it has been for 42 years, since 1937. When it first came here, old Ed Kretz, the Iron Man from Pomona, California, won the first Daytona 200 on that old beach course. Kenny and Freddie. The story couldn't be any better, could it, Dale?
That's for sure, Dave. This is just incredible. Here is the fastest two American superstars in existence today. Possibly the two greatest American road racers that we've ever seen here. Kenny Roberts, Freddie Spencer, and the up-and-coming Eddie Lawson. I tell you what, he's in hot pursuit here, riding an incredible race. Eddie's just doing a spectacular job here this afternoon.
The way the leaders, Roberts and Spencer, went around Eddie Lawson, I thought Eddie was going to back up like he was tied to a post, but he managed to hook onto the draft, and he's right in there keeping this a three-rider battle.
That's right. He just seems to be, he's up the pace a little bit. You know, whenever you get passed by a slower rider, you've got the tendency to just stay in the draft, and it just kind of increases a rider's motivation into turning the quicker times.
You are seeing something here that we have never seen very many times, at least, in Daytona 200 history, and you've certainly never seen it live on national television. This is a unique broadcast, first ever coverage of the Daytona 200. Quite often, the interval from first to second place in this race will be 30 or 40 seconds. Here, it is two bike legs, and we are approaching the midway point in this 200-mile, 52-lap battle around Daytona, and Freddie Spencer wants a piece of that lead.
It seems as though, Dave, that Kenny's experiencing some sort of rear tire problem. He's getting the bike, it's breaking loose a bit with him and getting sideways, coming out onto the banking from both areas, from the chicane and coming out of the infield. So possibly Kenny's tire is beginning to get a little bit worn here.
Well, I remember a fellow by the name of Dale Singleton who one time said of Kenny Roberts, he's always capable of riding to the point of no return and always returning. He can slide a road race motorcycle around like a dirt tracker like nobody else in the world. There, a nice smooth drive off the corner, and then right at the end, a little bit of a wiggle. That's when you're right at the razor edge, isn't it, Dave?
Just right at that edge, Dave. That's right. That's where Kenny is most comfortable in riding his motorcycle. You know, I think the art in going to the ultimate fastest on a two-wheeler is being able to take that bike literally just 1% shy of the point of crashing and making it be able to look like you have it totally in control.
The pictures are just so impressive. We've seen the stock cars go around here at 200 miles an hour. Earlier this month in this monumental Daytona Speed Weeks, we saw Cale Yarborough, the eventual Daytona 500 winner, destroy his race car in a 200-mile-per-hour crash. But now, suddenly, we find two Yamahas in trouble on the racetrack. Roberts and Lawson, who started first and second in this race, are now running first and second in this race. Freddie Spencer's history of bad luck, which is beginning to emulate the bad luck jinx that Kenny Roberts has suffered here for so many years, appears to continue. Dale, an incredible heartbreak for a kid who led this race so many times. We will find out what has happened to number 19, but he has slowed dramatically.
Well, we're looking for the story, Dave. We know now that Freddie has slowed, and Kenny and Eddie, of course, now has taken over the front-running two positions. I would say probably some mechanical difficulty with Freddie's Grand Prix two-stroke 500cc Honda.
Freddie Spencer first came to Daytona as a rookie in 1980. No rookie has won this race since 1955 when Brad Andres did it back on the old beach course. The rookie Freddie Spencer led the race for 42 laps on an Irv Kanemoto prepared privateer Yamaha, and then all of a sudden it ground to a halt. He came back in 81 as a factory Honda rider, led in 17 laps, and then blew that bike up. But now it is a Yamaha charge. And we have Freddie Spencer limping into the pits. Freddie Spencer has limped to pit road as a great battle continues for the lead.
It seems as though Kenny is giving him
Let's go to the pit. Let's get a report on this from Andrew Marriott.
Well, I'm in the pits now. They are looking at Freddie Spencer's bike. There doesn't seem to be any problem with the tire. It is impossible to determine what is wrong with Spencer's bike. He's having a discussion with his mechanic of Kanemoto. The team manager is walking away. Freddie has got off the bike. It looks to me very much as if Freddie Spencer's race is over. Back to you, Dave. I'll talk to Freddie when we can get hold of him.
Spencer is off the motorcycle. You see him standing there in the red, white, and blue colors. The motorcycle stopped, and that takes a tremendous amount of heat off this man, Kenny Roberts, the 31-year-old veteran who is making perhaps his last Daytona 200 start here. And definitely the man with whom he must battle is his teammate Eddie Lawson. Team Honda first came to Daytona in 1970. And in that story, they came here with an incredible effort, and Dick Mann on board. They went out and won the race. They packed up and went home, and they didn't come back to Daytona until last year. Now their team leader, Freddie Spencer, appears to be out of the race. Meanwhile, up front, Kenny Roberts trying to do what he has only done one time before. We'll continue the story on TBS right after this. We have passed the midnight in the Daytona 200. We have 24 laps to go in this monumental confrontation of motorcycles that finds these two men, Kenny Roberts and Eddie Lawson, locked in hand-to-hand combat. That was a three-rider battle just moments ago, but now Freddie Spencer is out of it, and he's with Andrew Marriott on pit road.
Freddie, just what happened?
Well, just quit shifting. We had some trouble the other day in practice with the other motor doing the same thing, going from fifth to sixth gear, and this one started, then it would just stop, you know, it was just free. There was no, it wouldn't engage in gear, and so I couldn't race anymore.
What was the problem early on when you came in?
Well, that was the problem with my helmet. We put some tape on it so the shield wouldn't flood away, because I figured in the 200-mile race it would have tore off, you know, but that was no problem. We got back up there, and, you know, I think I was about like 28 seconds or something. I called back up, but, you know, we couldn't go any farther.
It was an absolutely sensational battle between you and Eddie and Kenny Roberts. Were you enjoying that?
Yeah, it was pretty fun. You know, at first, you know, when I was that far behind, I would say it was going to be a long day, but we called back up, and it would have been a good race, but we'll just have to wait till next week's first Grand Prix, I guess.
Well, there's still about 100 miles to go. Who do you fancy, Kenny or Eddie, or do you think somebody else is still going to come through?
Well, the Yamahas were really running good. It was difficult to even stay in the draft, you know, and so if they keep running, they're just running away with the race.
Freddie, better luck next week in South Africa.
Thanks a lot.
Next week, of course, is the South African Grand Prix, where the World Championship battle will begin. Kenny Roberts and Eddie Lawson will both be there, and you can bet your bottom dollar that Freddie Spencer will be there. Freddie Spencer, the young man that I think it was you, Dale Singleton, that looked like a shoe salesman. Right now, this is a heck of a battle. Look at Lawson making a move on Kenny Roberts. Those two bikes appear to be absolutely equal in horsepower.
I've observed them down the back straightaway a couple of times, Dave, as Kenny has let Freddie come along up beside him, and then Lawson seemed to be a bit reluctant to break the draft and take the lead. So I think Eddie is really going to school on Kenny here this afternoon. You know, Kenny, the old veteran, three-time world champion, and Eddie, the upcoming young superstar. I think he's trying to learn every possible tactic he can here, and trying to make his bid for road racing superstardom.
Well, I'll tell you what, a bid it is. He comes up on the inside. Now, that move was not a move to try to take the lead. I don't think it was a move to try to get inside, but they crossed the stripe side by side, and then Lawson ducks back in, goes to school. I think that's a good way to put it, because he indeed is the new teammate of Kenny Roberts. Roberts will make his final assault on the World Championship in the 1983 season, and Eddie Lawson will be right there with him as his teammate. And meanwhile, we've got a couple of interesting stories developing back in the pack. One of the stories we should update for you is the demise of Mike Baldwin. He has fallen back in the field. He is now running unofficially in fourth spot, but well back as this battle rages on. He was with the front runners early. Later on today, you will see the Superbike competition, which ran here on Friday. Freddie Spencer and Mike Baldwin had a tremendous battle in that race. You'll see it here on this live telecast of TBS exclusive Daytona 200 coverage. Here is the fourth-place motorcycle. It is number 37, and it's a marvelous story. Thad Wolf from Thousand Oaks, California. The pink leathers are only part of the story. This young man is a privateer, and he is the only Suzuki out there in combat today. Thad Wolf was the lead privateer in the country in U.S. road racing last year. We explained earlier that a privateer is an individually backed rider, a rider who essentially spends his own money or finds his individual sponsor. You got a quick look at number 40 there. That is Dave Aldana, and he is locked in the draft of Thad Wolf. That is the race for fourth and fifth spot. The story on Thad Wolf is that Team Suzuki pulled its effort out of Daytona. They were very strong here in the Superbike competition, like you're going to see later today for many years. They pulled out. Thad Wolf found himself without any kind of factory support. Here's the lead battle with Kenny Roberts and Eddie Lawson raging on. Thad Wolf found a millionaire Japanese motorcycle enthusiast, a guy who has a marvelous collection, literally hundreds of famous old racing motorcycles. and Thad got him to back him, and he is on a privately entered Suzuki here. It is the only Suzuki in the race, and at last report he had moved to 4th spot. He has now slipped back to 6th. Here is the battle for the lead, and let's run it down for you. As Kenny Roberts and Eddie Lawson cross the stripe virtually side by side, they are running 1st and 2nd. The 3rd place machine is Steve Wise, who was last year's top rookie in this race from McAllen, Texas, the former motocross racer who turned to road racing, made his first road race start right here last year, and dazzled everybody by coming home 3rd. 4th unofficially is Baldwin. 5th is another privateer. That is Steve Gervais. That's your unofficial running order on the top 5 as the Daytona 200 works into lap 30 of 52. Dale, I think you put it magnificently. I think Eddie Lawson is going to school with Kenny Roberts right here, and I think he's learning his lessons very, very well. Kenny is not able to pull away.
That's right, Dave. You know, it looks like that they're probably imposing some Yamaha commercial footage here this afternoon, and Eddie continually breaks the drought to pull up on the line beside Kenny down the straightaways on several different occasions.
This is now your 3rd place motorcycle. There has been a change in 3rd spot. Steve Gervais, a privateer on a Yamaha from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and he is representative of a couple of things. The privateer story that we were just telling you about, and also the fact that that motorcycle, the TZ750, is really... This is the end of an era for that bike. That motorcycle first came here in 1974 in the hands of 13-time world champion Giacomo Agostini, won the race, and is undefeated since. No other motorcycle has won Daytona since 1974. No bike other than that machine being ridden by Steve Gervais. Singleton rode 2 of them to victory here. But now the technology has caught up with that faithful old warhorse of a bike as these factory rockets run out front with all of that high buck support. And as Dale mentioned, all of the advertising impact that a Daytona victory can have. The privateers are left with the TZ750, and it's really a dead bike, isn't it, Dale?
That's right. You know, we're only about 60% of the 200 miles into this race, and the old TZ750 Yamaha, the biggest advantage it had going for it, that thing would just run like a Swiss clock all day long. That was one of the most dependable bikes that Yamaha ever produced. They made a mass production unit of that motorcycle, made it available to the racing public, and it was just literally one of the most competitive ones on the track.
Well, of course, Honda came here last year and signaled the end of the era for that motorcycle because they have developed the 4-stroke technology. 2-stroke versus 4-stroke has been very much a story here the last couple of years, and that technology has changed. The Team Honda entries are still very, very strong, even though we have seen early problems for a couple of those machines. Right now, Kenny Roberts and Eddie Lawson are writing their own story out front as they play a masterful duet. And we've got Smoke up on the high banking, a rider in trouble as he comes out onto the backstretch, and Smoke goes everywhere. That's pretty unusual to see an engine hand grenade like that on a motorcycle. That unfortunate soul's day has come to an end. He's supposed to be running 170 miles an hour right there, Dale. Instead, it's walking speed.
That's right. That's what you're used to in stock car racing more, Dave.
The leaders continue to lap their way around Daytona. 30 laps are in the book. 12 to go at Daytona International Speedway. Kenny Roberts and Eddie Lawson side by side for the lead in a monumental 42nd Daytona 200. Student and the teacher at Daytona International Speedway. Kenny Roberts live at Daytona, leading the biggest motorcycle race in the world as we work the 32nd of 52 laps here. And in his draft, the youngster who hopes to follow Kenny Roberts' footsteps to Grand Prix World Championship fame. Number 2, Kenny Roberts. Number 21, Eddie Lawson. While we were away for commercial, the student and the teacher switched roles for a moment. And Eddie Lawson went to the front, and then Kenny Roberts took him back. Did you see something there, Dale, that you thought was significant?
They sure did. It was an incredible move by Eddie in the drought. And he dropped under Kenny, took the lead momentarily. Kenny slipped right back under him just moments after they entered the infield section.
So now they are back in the order that we've seen for about the last dozen laps here, with Roberts leading Lawson around this racetrack. They are working heavy traffic. That is always so much a story here at Daytona. Remember, you are seeing, there is Lawson to the inside with the traffic. Who's going to come out of this with the lead? Lawson had the move. Roberts simply found his line taken away from him, and we have a new leader. And Lawson looks back to see where the traffic is. Roberts goes around the outside, and they come to the International Horseshoe turn side by side. In first goes Kenny Roberts. That looked to me like a move where Kenny Roberts demonstrated his superiority. I think he's waiting for Eddie.
Definitely. That was a perfect observance right there of what importance it is to play the role of being a super good rider to work the traffic, Dave. You saw Eddie run in on the inside, Kenny on the outside. It was just a tremendous move by both those riders.
Here's another look. Roberts blocked, comes up to the outside. Lawson says, I'll take that line, and he goes to the inside, squirts into the lead. Now, Roberts is stuck behind two slower motorcycles. That gave Lawson the advantage. It didn't last very long. Kenny Roberts squirts right back up around the outside and retakes the lead. Lawson and Roberts swapping the first two spots. Third still belongs to number 33, Steve Gervais, the privateer from Canada, and the leading international competitor here. The fourth place rider is Steve Wise, who was such a story here a year ago. And running in the fifth spot is Thad Wolf on that Suzuki, backed by the millionaire Japanese motorcycle enthusiast who said, hey, I want to see one more brand out there at Daytona. That's your running order for the top five. This is, in fact, the battleground of the factories. And, boy, the battle today has just been monumental. But, Dale, when you get right down to it, it's not a matter in this race of who's on what motorcycle. This is man against man.
That's right, Dave. It's something that's just phenomenal about the endurance and the strategy that one perfects in such a grueling 200 miles of motorcycle racing. There's so many things out there a person has to take in consideration. The fatigue, the concentration, all the statistics that make such a big difference in the effects and the results in this grueling 200 miles.
We're getting a look at Steve Wise in that pack of traffic. He is number 28. Wise is your fourth place rider in the race, and he is an absolutely marvelous story. The kid started his career down in McAllen, Texas as a motocross racer, and in fact became a very successful factory-backed racing star. As his career began to wane in motocross and he found that he just wasn't able to pull off win after win, he shifted gears and they said, Steve, how would you like to try road racing? And he says, I'll tell you how much I'd like it. Let me go to Daytona next year. Now he is running fourth in the Daytona 200, and right coming into your frame behind him in your picture, you see both the machines. Michael Baldwin, his teammate, is on the charge. That is the third and fourth place race, and it has tightened up dramatically here in the 1983 Daytona 200. I'm glad we're here live for the first time, Dale, because this is one of the greatest battles in the 42 years that this race has been run.
Well, you know, Dave, this is the first chance I've had to observe the race from such a good place here at the TBS telecast, but it is definitely one of the more competitive 200s I've ever known about.
Ted Otto in the pits knows a good bit about these two fellows. Kenny Roberts, the leader, Eddie Lawson, the student. Let's go to Ted for that.
Well, we've talked to Team Yamaha extensively. If there were any team rules out here that Lawson was not supposed to pass Roberts if they were doing well, they say no such thing. They're both on their own. They can go out and do their own thing. They think they found the heir apparent to Kenny Roberts in Eddie Lawson, and he's going to join him in Europe this year. They are turning laps at 2:06.91, and team manager Ken Clark said they're cruising, just taking it easy.
Meanwhile, the top rookie in the race in qualifying, Fred Merkel, who started in row 2, has retired. A big disappointment for that young man. It's an awfully tough place for a rookie to do well. Only once did a rookie win this race, and that was back in 1955. A motorcycle racing legend by the name of Brad Andres not only won Daytona, but went on to become the only rider in American history to win the Grand National Championship. We got a lead change as the leader is coming on pit road. Down pit road comes Kenny Roberts. That's going to leave the number 21 machine of Eddie Lawson in first spot. A routine pit stop. Let's go down to the pits.
Kenny Roberts pulls up along pit road. Everybody's taking a look at both the front and the rear tires. The signal from the mechanic in the rear is that it's okay back there. They do a quick pit stop, put in fuel. Everything appears to be very sound with the bike. They're congratulating each other in the pits, and Roberts is back out.
Kenny Roberts back onto the racetrack, and what a glorious thrill it must be for him to just be out there on lap 35 of this 52-lap battle, because so many times before we've seen his day end far, far short of the 200 miles distance. If you have just joined us, Kenny Roberts, number 2, the most famous motorcycle racer America has ever produced, is making his last Daytona 200 start. He has just given up the lead to his teammate, number 21, Eddie Lawson, as Roberts made a routine pit stop, and we will see Eddie Lawson coming in for fuel very shortly, and when that happens, that should tighten that battle right back up. Kenny Roberts, who started in 1972. It was a banner year in motorcycle competition. Produced not only Kenny Roberts, but also Gary Scott, who won the 1975 AMA Grand National, now Camel Pro Series Championship, and Mike Kidd, who won the title in 1981. We worked down the backstretch with number 40 to check out number 21, Eddie Lawson, looking for his pit stop. Meanwhile, we're beginning to see pit stops from some of the other front runners. Mike Baldwin has been on pit road. Dave Aldana has just come into the pits. These are the routine refueling stops. This is about the point in the race, Dale, where you got to come in for fuel.
That's right, Dave. And when Kenny Roberts pulled in and made the pit stop, although he gave the lead to Eddie Lawson, Lawson has another scheduled pit stop he's got to make. So I tell you, it's going to, when Kenny gets back on the track after his pit stop, these two riders should be, you know, at the grueling same place.
Here comes the stop. The leader is on pit road. Eddie Lawson hurtling down through the pits at 100 miles an hour. Now onto the brakes hard. Whoa, the bike down. Ted Otto is there.
And he comes right up against the bang board. They throw up in front just in case there's brake fade. He's holding on, talking to them. They're talking through the helmet. He has not much to say as they just put in fuel, push him off, and everything looks well for the leader, Eddie Lawson.
Meanwhile, Kenny Roberts hurdles down the front straightaway. The race to turn one. Lawson is on the entrance to the racetrack. We should see Kenny Roberts whip around him on the outside. There goes Roberts, and we are right back where we were just moments ago. The battle between the two factory-back Yamahas of Kenny Roberts and Eddie Lawson again hooked up in a battle in this classic 1983 Daytona 200. We'll have more of the action right after this.
Exciting, the most American sport on two wheels. The inspiration for an incredible new motorcycle, the Honda Ascot. Now, B-twin power and torque and racer quick handling comes off the track and onto the street. The Honda Ascot. What motorcycling was meant to be.
Daytona International. In the 42-year history of this, the greatest motorcycle race on the face of the earth, we have never seen a better battle than this at this distance. Two riders literally running the wheels off one another, and it's a Cinderella story. Number 2, Kenny Roberts, who first came here in 1972 and who has developed through an 11-year career at Daytona, the most incredible record of bad luck, has suddenly found himself, I should not say suddenly, has dramatically moved himself out front of the rest of this field, but right on his tail and trying at every turn of the racetrack to take the lead is his teammate, number 21, the young and upcoming Eddie Lawson, and this has been a great race. Dale?
Yes, at this point in the race, Dave, these riders have taken on fuel for the last time, and now they're only looking for the checkered flag.
Pit stop for number 28, Steve Wise, fourth place motorcycle. In and out of the pit, Andrew Marriott, everything looked normal there.
Yes, it certainly did. A very quick 4.5-second pit stop on my stopwatch, and Steve Wise away. Steve Wise, wife looking on to see that pit stop, but Honda a little dejected, I think, down in the pits here. They did think they'd be running in the first two positions. They're not. They're third and fourth, but back to you, Dave.
Those two spots instead have gone to these two men, Kenny Roberts and Eddie Lawson. That pit stop should keep Steve Wise in third spot because the fourth place man, Steve Gervais, a couple of laps ago had a little problem on his pit stop, and he has now dropped back to fourth place. The factory Honda of number 43, Mike Baldwin, continues to circulate in fifth position as this tremendous battle continues. The team manager that manages both of these riders, Kenny Roberts and Eddie Lawson, is Kenny Clark, a former racer, a veteran campaigner himself, and he made a prediction before this race that has turned out to be absolutely spot on. We're going to get to that prediction. We've got Kenny Clark talking about his two proteges. He's been with Kenny Roberts throughout his career, and we're going to go to that in just a moment. Right now, the action is just too good to leave behind. These guys are at it. Let's give a listen to what Kenny Clark had to say about this show.
Well, I don't think that anybody's going to run much harder than Kenny. He normally starts off at a pretty good pace, and I think that this year we've got the machine debugged to the point where it should go the whole distance.
Your prediction then is that Kenny Roberts will easily win the 200 this year?
I don't think he'll win it easily. I think Kenny and Eddie were going to put on quite a show.
How's that? How's that for looking into the old crystal ball, Dale Singleton? These guys have put on one of the finest shows in the 42-year history of this race.
No kidding. There's never been competition like this far into the race, Dave, that I can ever remember here in the Daytona 200. These two riders are definitely setting the patterns that both of them wish so highly that happens this year in the Grand Prix World Competition when they go up against the best in the world in the Grand Prix campaigns throughout Europe on these two yellow and black factory entries.
The voice of Dale Singleton, who on 2 occasions came home the winner in this race, and who says those are the 2 biggest days of his life. Dale Singleton, who has now retired from this 180-mile-an-hour warfare. But, Dale, you're not out of the racing business. What's the story?
Well, I'm pursuing a venture in NASCAR racing, Dave, something that I've always had in the back of my mind I would love to do so much, and I've had some opportunities of organizing some things, and hopefully that I'll get the big breaks that I need to enter at a level in the stock car racing competition that will prove to potential sponsors that I have the driving ability, the talent, and the promotional aggressiveness that it takes to put together an American national stock car racing program.
Well, there's certainly a precedent for that. An awful lot of 2-wheeled racers have gone on to 4-wheeled stardom. Joe Leonard started on 2 wheels before he became the IndyCar superstar that he was. Other names like Paul Goldsmith, the last man to win a beach stock car race here at Daytona, was also a great motorcycle racer. Mike Hailwood, John Surtees, so many of the great 4-wheeled stars of the past have started on 2 wheels, and Dale Singleton is trying to pursue that same career, and I'm sure if somebody out there's got a good stock car that they'd like to put a good driver in, they can find Dale listed in the Dalton, Georgia phone book. Meanwhile, out front, the tremendous battle continues here. I'm beginning to wonder a bit about strategy here, Dale, because this race is winding down. We are working lap 39 of this race. It's a 52-lap battle. At lap 39, we have just 50 miles to go. We're at the 3/4 mark. Have they pulled out the stops, or are they still pacing themselves?
That's something that's going to be real interesting to watch, Dave, as this race unwinds, getting around the 48th lap, because I'm sure either of these riders want to be in this position in the closing lap of the race and bring it right down to a photo finish. I think that Kenny Roberts, if he has the horsepower he needs, if he's got any advantage over Lawson, I think Kenny will try to pull just enough distance out so he can win this race comfortably. I'm sure maybe Lawson's thinking, on the other hand, something different, but it appears here that now Kenny has turned it up just a bit to try to pull that margin he's been searching for the length of this grueling 200-mile race.
110-mile-an-hour average speed at Daytona for 35 laps. That is just unbelievable. If indeed Kenny Roberts has pulled out the stops, it appears that, Eddie Lawson looking back over his shoulder in the chicane. If there's a tire problem, that's where it's going to show up. Lawson appears to be back on the throttle. Dale, any thoughts?
Oh, that looked like probably he had some bad experience there with a big slide or something, one of those big hair-raising where the thing breaks loose and alerts the rider immediately. We'll have to wait and see if there's a story that develops around that, but definitely Lawson was off the gas momentarily, looking down at the rear wheel.
You can't get off the gas very long here because, as Singleton pointed out a couple of minutes ago, you cover the length of a football field every second, and Eddie Lawson indeed does have a problem. He's in the pits. Let's go to Ted Otto.
Eddie Lawson came in pointing to the back tire, and indeed they put it up on the tire jack, and they are going to work. We talked to the Yamaha people earlier, and they have also perfected a quick change rear end. Honda has been talking about that for several years, showed it to us last year, but Yamaha has a quick change rear end. They say they can change rear wheels quickly also, even though they have not gone through practice drills. But as you can see, the rear wheel is already off. The new one is back on. Eddie Lawson is standing in here ready to go, and very quickly the rear wheel is back on this Yamaha machine, and in just a few moments, Eddie Lawson will be pushing off to go back out to do battle.
I see dejection in the eyes of Eddie Lawson. Dale Singleton, and he knows that a wonderful opportunity has slipped away from him here.
Well, Dave, you know, he's pulled out an incredible lead, some minute and 23 seconds over the third-place rider. If they hurry, it's a possibility they can get Eddie back on the track and put him back in contention for this runner-up position here at Daytona.
The first 2 riders, Kenny Roberts and Eddie Lawson, were a minute and 23 seconds ahead of third-place Steve Gervais when that man, Lawson, came in to change a rear tire. The bike is now back at speed and will return to the racetrack, but he has given up his hopes of victory, and he has left Kenny Roberts out front for the moment all by himself. Perhaps I've overstated the case because he has not necessarily given up his opportunity for victory here. Before, we'll be back with more Daytona action in a moment. First time in its prolonged and glorious 42-year history, the Daytona 200 comes to you live on TBS Sports. Kenny Roberts leads the greatest motorcycle race in the world. That man, his teammate, Eddie Lawson, was right there in the thick of it until he had to stop and make a tire change, and that brings up the crucial issue. Let us reiterate briefly, Roberts had to make an early and unexpected pit stop for what they thought might be oil on the tire. It dropped him far back into the field. He charged through traffic, came back up, and took the lead away from Lawson, who had run out front conservatively throughout the race. Lawson wore out a tire. The obvious question is, does Kenny Roberts have a potential tire problem here? Ted Otto has the answer.
I'm standing alongside Kenny Clark, the team captain for Yamaha. What was the tire problem?
Eddie picked up a puncture. There's just a nice, neat little round hole right dead in the middle of the tire.
So it is not tire wear.
No, tire is in absolutely perfect condition. It could run all afternoon, except that it won't hold air.
So you shouldn't be bringing in Kenny Roberts for a tire problem.
No, there's no problems at all.
This is the first time that you've made 2 pit stops with Kenny Roberts since 1978. You have to be very nervous.
It's getting close now.
Down to the wire, and they're all set, but no tire problem expected for Kenny Roberts.
Meanwhile, there is a dramatic story that has developed for a guy who was running right with the leaders early on and has now fallen back off the pace. We have the explanation on the Mike Baldwin problem from Andrew Marriott.
Yes, it seems that Mike has got the same problem that he had in the Superbike 100 race. It appears that he has got fuel coming up into his face after a pit stop damaged the fuel filler. So Mike Baldwin is being slowed, we feel, by that problem. We've also got one of the Honda support riders, Roberto Pietri, has just pulled into the pits, stepped off his bike, and Roberto's race is definitely over, and I see that the fairing is quite badly damaged. Roberto's obviously had a very big moment. But Honda not totally dejected. Steve Wise is running strongly, and when Eddie Lawson came into the pits, you should have seen the smile on team manager Udall Geitel's face. That's the Honda team manager, remember. So, Dave, Honda not totally dejected. Back to you in the commentary position.
Well, let us bear in mind now that the Eddie Lawson problem, the number 21 bike that led this race for much of the distance and then suddenly found himself in a battle with Kenny Roberts, a monumental battle here at Daytona, had a tire problem, but it was not a tire wear problem. He, in fact, suffered a flat tire, and that means that, according to Kenny Roberts' team manager, Roberts is okay. Baldwin has a fuel leak, fuel spraying up into his face. He has come on pit road, and perhaps we'll find out more about that story now. This is identical to the problem that befell him in the Superbike race on Friday. Highlights of that race still to come on this TBS triple-header telecast. Mike Baldwin is on pit road signaling they've cut the engine. Let's go to Andrew Marriott and find out what's going on.
Yes, well, Mike Baldwin is coming in very slowly. He's gone right past the fuel filler. He is definitely out of the race. Mike Baldwin's out of the race, I think. He is getting off the bike. We cannot see if fuel has been spraying on him, but it's definitely a mechanical problem. It looks like a gearbox problem. They are looking at the bike, but Mike Baldwin's race almost certainly... it looks as if it's a clutch. Mike just pulled in the clutch pedal, showing that he's had a problem there, so the clutch, it appears, has failed, and Mike Baldwin definitely out of the race. We'll try and talk to him later.
If it isn't one problem, it's 6 for Mike Baldwin at Daytona. The Superbike race, the fuel cap broke. It sprayed fuel up underneath his helmet visor, and it got into his eyes. It broke up a tremendous battle that, as we indicated a moment ago, you will see coming up later in this telecast on TBS. There is the dejected Mike Baldwin pulling off the helmet, ultimately befallen here in this Daytona 200 by a failed clutch. Mike Baldwin of Darien, Connecticut, who crashed horribly in 1979 in Loudon, New Hampshire, shattered his leg, lay in a hospital for 6 months, and made the decision that he would come back and be a professional motorcycle racer. There is Kenny Roberts, who now leads this race comfortably. What may well be his last Daytona 200 is firmly in Roberts' hands for the moment. Michael Baldwin's comeback to Daytona was very, very impressive in 1980. He jumped on a Team Kawasaki entry. He started dead last in the field and clawed his way through traffic to finish 4th. That removed forever anybody's idea whether or not he was going to, in fact, continue his career. Now Andrew Marriott is with Mike Baldwin.
He's out of the way. Mike, what happened? It looks as if he lost the clutch.
Well, on the second or third lap, the clutch started to slip a little bit going into top gear. And so I had to start riding it really conservatively going into fifth. And then by about the 20th lap, it started getting really bad. And then I slowed off and tried to hope that she'd make it all the way through the race. But by about the 42nd lap, right before I came in, it won't even engage. It's a hydraulic throw-out mechanism, and sometimes when they get hot, they stick. And I guess what put us out of the race.
You must be very disappointed.
Yes, I am. It's always been kind of little bad luck things that happen to me at this track. And then, well, it's a long race. It's a tough track. But hopefully we'll come back next year and we'll do better. Of course, last year we didn't do too well because of bad luck here, but we stormed them the rest of the season. So I think after this race, our crew won't be down on spirit or anything. We'll go back and we'll give them a real shot the rest of the race.
Well, there's Michael Baldwin saying he's going to have a better race next year.
Well, he indeed did storm through the rest of last season. Mike Baldwin's comeback included the 1982 U.S. Road Racing Championship. The Daytona 200 kicks off a series of American Motorcycle Association Camel Pro Series competitions that crown the #1 rider in road racing, and Michael Baldwin was that rider last year. To reiterate, it was Baldwin who took the lead on the first of 52 laps of this Daytona 200. Kenny Roberts, who now leads the race on bike #2, is expected to be very much a factor, as was number 19, Freddie Spencer. Both those riders made early pit stops, unexpected pit stops, had problems, clawed their way back through traffic. In the meantime, Eddie Lawson, number 21, took the lead. Roberts caught Lawson and made a two-rider race out of it for lap after lap. Then Lawson punctured a tire and had to come in for a tire change. That has left Roberts out front all alone. Meanwhile, Freddie Spencer retired with transmission problems. Now, Mike Baldwin has retired with clutch difficulties, and that leaves Kenny Roberts the leader. Number 21, Eddie Lawson, despite the tire change, is in second spot. Third is the Honda of Steve Wise. Fourth is the privateer entry of Steve Gervais, the Canadian rider. Fifth is the sensational story of Thad Wolf, the privateer, who is carrying the colors right there of number 37, and brilliant colors indeed. That's the first pink leathers we've seen here since Carter Alsop became the first woman ever to ride the Daytona 200, Dale Singleton.
Thad Wolf is doing a tremendously good job here today. It's being the front-running privateer entry, pursuing the big mega buck entries of these factories. But Kenny is looking very consistent. With 10 laps to go here, I'm sure Kenny is just wanting to ride consistently and hope that his big yellow and black factory entry goes the distance and wins his second Daytona 200 motorcycle race, Dave.
We begin to harken back to 1978, the only time in previous history when Kenny Roberts has been able to run this race at full speed. That year he lapped the field. He has just overlapped the fifth-place rider, Thad Wolf. Kenny Roberts is working his way toward lapping the field again. He is now around Steve Gervais. Kenny Roberts has lapped up through fourth place here. I don't think he's going to be able to lap his teammate. I don't think he can recap what he did in 1978. But for Kenny Roberts, who says this is his last Daytona 200, it must be an incredible thrill just 8 laps from the finish to be this close to that prestigious victory.
That would be such a way for Kenny to cap off such a successful motorcycle racing career. A man that has given the sport of motorcycling, has made such a tremendous contribution to the sport, the class, and the prestige. Kenny Roberts, in the eyes of many, many fans and spectators all over the world, slated to be the greatest motorcycle racer ever.
Kenny Roberts leads the Daytona 200. It is his dream to win this race and cap his marvelous career. We'll be back to see if he can do it. CBS Sports coverage of the 200 continues. With just 7 of 52 laps remaining, King Kenny Roberts, the most famous motorcycle racer in American history, the most jinxed motorcycle racer in Daytona history, is capping his final appearance in this great race with a monumental performance. He has opened up a 1-minute and 20-second advantage over his teammate Eddie Lawson. That is, in essence, the length of the pit stop that it took to change a tire on Lawson's motorcycle. That tire went flat and put him in the pits for 1 minute and 20 after they had battled handlebar to handlebar at 180 miles an hour for the lead. Now it's King Kenny out front by himself.
That's right, Dave. He's opened up such a margin here, a comfortable margin, that I think Kenny, through my observance of him, through the infield, working the rough corners, getting out onto the banking, both out of the chicane and out of the infield, Kenny has slowed up a bit. He's rated his pace down, and he's just looking for that consistent finish, being conservative on that bike to be sure he finishes this race.
Normally, you would see Roberts drag his knee through that corner. There you saw the knee 3 or 4 inches off the ground. And our scorers and timers confirm that Roberts has indeed backed the pace down now. He turned the 46th lap of this race at 2 minutes 8.4 seconds. Remember that he qualified almost 9 seconds faster than that. He shattered the 2-minute barrier on the 3.87-mile Daytona motorcycle road course. No man in history has ever been around here faster. Kenny Roberts, who started the race on the pole, appears, if he can hold it in one piece, to finish in first spot. That alone is something of an accomplishment. Back in 1963, Ralph White on a Harley-Davidson won the Daytona 200 from the pole, and then it was 13 years before anybody could do it again. The next time it happened was Steve Baker in 1977, but that started a real trend because Roberts came back and lapped the field from the pole in 78, and some guy named Singleton won it from the pole in 79. It's only been done 4 times. Dale Singleton, is there that much advantage to starting on the pole, or why is there a pole jinx here?
I really don't think so, Dave. 200 miles of racing action here is really something that's not so important as far as the 200-mile endurance is concerned. Winning the pole here at Daytona is something that, of course, encounters a lot of prestige for a rider. It gets a lot of attention from the press and the media, and it does set a trend that you are a competitor. You turn the quickest time here. It's more or less of a big glorious moment to win this race from the pole.
Well, Kenny Roberts has sat on the pole 8 times, and Kenny Roberts says that the nature of the Daytona 200 has begun to change just a little bit.
Yeah, the bikes are getting so good, so dependable, that I think that my bike is capable of doing this race flat out, just like a GP, 200 miles. Whether I can do it, I don't know. And it's a lot of things happen in this race, like bikes falling down, oil. So I'll tell you, last year it would have been a 200-mile sprint race had we not had the problems that we had. They're ready. The bikes are ready. It's just setting for a rider that wants to do a sprint race for 200 miles. I don't think I want to do that this year. I want to be a little bit on the safe side. I want to save myself to the end of the race, and that's the way I'm going to play it. I don't care win or lose. That's what's going to happen. If they're really jetting off me right at the beginning, I don't think they will, but if they try it, I'm going to have to play that by ear. But I think we'll be strong at the end of the race.
Well, he played it by ear, and it was a virtuoso performance. Kenny Roberts fell back off the pace when he had to make an unexpected pit stop, and then Kenny Roberts turned up the wick, charged through traffic, and he certainly appears strong as we approach the finish. It may be Kenny Roberts' last Daytona 200. It is the last Daytona 200 with a man in the red and white shirt there. You saw a look at Charlie Watson. What a bit of Daytona history that man has become. He is the referee for this race. Charlie Watson used to announce the old beach races here when they ran on the beach course. His wife, Joni, scored the races. Charlie has refereed virtually every Daytona 200. And Dale, I think he's probably at the same time one of the most loved and most hated men out there. He's an irascible old 70-year-old retired truck driver, and he's like an Army drill sergeant, but what he says goes.
He's very firm and very concrete and very stern in a lot of cases, Dave, but he is one that the riders have developed a great amount of respect for. He's called the shots. He's made sure that we've been on that racetrack with the safest possible conditions in existence. Charlie Watson is something that a lot of these racers owe a lot of deservance to.
I'll tell you what, it's not going to be the same Daytona without Kenny Roberts, nor will it be the same without Charlie Roberts. He's certainly going to be missed. Charlie Watson, Kenny Roberts and Charlie Watson both making their last Daytona 200 appearances here. As I was listening to Kenny Roberts talk about his race strategy, the calm, conservative, classy world championship rider at the age of 31, I can't help but recall back to 1971 when I interviewed Kenny Roberts for the first time. He was a 17-year-old kid, and to say that he was cocky and arrogant would be the ultimate understatement. Kenny Roberts was not the most popular kid ever to come out of Modesto, California. He was good, and he knew how good he was, and he wasn't bashful about telling anybody about it. He didn't make himself a whole lot of friends. Didn't care about talking to the press, didn't care about talking to anybody. Kenny Roberts' maturity and the class that he has developed, the character that he has developed through winning and losing championships over the years has just been a real personal thrill for me to watch, and the interview that we did with him the other day on Thursday after he shattered the track record was a real personally satisfying experience for me. It is truly a hero worship thing to be able to watch a man like this do the kind of job that he's doing here today. Kenny Roberts deserves to win this Daytona 200.
I really don't think there's a man on that grid that lined up to start this 42nd Daytona 200 that's more deserving to win this prestigious and richest motorcycle
Here is
race.
heartbreak. Here is heartbreak for number 37, Thad Wolff. The number 37 machine has broken. He was running in 4th spot. That was the only top-flight Suzuki in the field. It's privately backed by a Japanese millionaire who financed this racing effort out of his own pocket. Thad Wolff came here as the rider. Last year, he was the last privateer, the top privateer in American road racing. Now he is another heartbroken man who has failed, as so many have before, to go the full distance. He came so close. We're on lap 49 of 52, and Wolff walks away, pushing his pink Escargot Suzuki dejectedly into the pits. Meanwhile, Kenny Roberts is closer and closer to the biggest plum in world road racing, the Daytona 200. The interesting question is going to be in victory lane if he gets there 2 laps from now. Will he, in fact, retire? Because he also told us in that Thursday interview, you heard it earlier here on this live telecast, quote, who knows? I may win the race and get all pumped up and run it again next year. Dale Singleton, you know Kenny Roberts. Do you have an opinion? Is this the last time we'll see him in Daytona?
It's really hard to say, Dave. Kenny can do just about literally what he wants to in the world of motorcycle competition, whether or not he gets a renewal from Yamaha, which I'm sure he would, or whatever the circumstances may be. Kenny is at his full objection. Whatever he would like to do, he can come back here, and of course he's not going to be talent-stricken in one essence to come back and win this prestigious Daytona 200.
With 3 laps to go, Kenny Roberts on his 11th try, trying to win the Daytona 200 for the second time. He did it in 1978 when he lapped the field. It is 1 minute and 2 seconds from first to second place. That means that the second place man, Eddie Lawson, has carved some 18 seconds off Kenny Roberts' lead. That means that Lawson is continuing to gas it up out there, but Kenny Roberts is just cruising. He's trying to save that motorcycle. Now, Dale, is when you really listen to that engine and you really feel that clutch and you anticipate anything in the world that might go wrong.
I think Kenny now is paying more closer attention to his lap boards than ever. And
There's Lawson, and he's charging. Lawson is really on the move. He wants a 1-2 sweep in this race. He wants a personal achievement at Daytona. He won't catch Kenny Roberts, but he wants to be there if Roberts breaks.
But you know, the important thing, I think, what Eddie's got on his mind, as far as the statistics are concerned, how many seconds back he finishes on Kenny is something that carries a lot of great importance for Eddie, being the young superstar he is, especially coupled with this great world champion rider, Kenny Roberts, as they enter the 1983 World Grand Prix Championship chase together.
Roberts started out as a dirt track motorcycle racer. He was Rookie of the Year for the AMA in 1972. He came back and won the Camel Pro Series Championship in 73 and 74. He's been a Yamaha loyalist throughout his career, but Harley-Davidson horsepower on dirt track eventually outstripped the Yamahas, and Kenny could no longer compete, so he simply shifted gears, went to Europe, and became the first American ever to win the World Road Racing Championship. He was also the first rookie ever to win that title, and just to prove that that was no fluke, he came back and he won it 2 more times. I think he'd have won his 4th, but an injury and some mechanical problems denied him that opportunity. That is the one goal, if he can take this checkered flag today, that remains for Kenny Roberts. Dale Singleton, he wants to be world champion one more time.
That's absolutely correct, Dave. Kenny has lost none of his desire or concentration on going to Europe and literally conquering the Grand Prix competition. You know, when he quit dirt track racing here, I think it was simply because he was so frustrated with the bikes he rode on the dirt here. The Yamahas just weren't competitive with the factory Harleys that Springer and Randy Giles, Scott Parker, some of the top dirt trackers had. So I think that was his alternate choice, was to get on that road racer and go to Europe, who was Kel Carruthers and worked so closely with him and has been such a great asset to Kenny's performance. Kel, being a former 250cc world champion, has been one of the key factors and elements in Kenny Roberts being the world champion.
It is important to remember remember that world championship racers basically start their career on pavement and stay on pavement. This is the only man in the world who has ever been able to make the transition from AMA dirt tracking, that wonderful, venerable sport, to road racing in America and go on to the World Championship. Kenny Roberts takes the white flag. He is 3.87 miles away from one of the most monumental victories of his career. I can't imagine what he must be thinking now. He wanted so much to come here and win this race. The early frustration of that pit stop, but the counterpoint to that is the calm, the cool, the comeback. He kept his head together. A 31-year-old veteran knows when it's time to go fast, and he made his charge. He got where he wanted to be, Dale.
Right now is when Kenny is being, I think that second wind of adrenaline, you may say, and that nervousness as he waves to the crowd here. Kenny is feeling self-confident. This is probably a point to where he's feeling a bit cocky now, Dave. You know, he's so close to taking home that second Daytona 200 title as he so smoothly works that infield. You see the lean angle then? He wasn't anywhere near as close as he has been earlier in the race. As he negotiates the turn 5, the International Horseshoe, Kenny Roberts is just cruising, waving to the crowd.
He's flashing the victory sign already. Roberts says, hey, I'm number one. My motorcycle runs the distance. There isn't anybody out there can touch me. I hope that there is still in Kenny Roberts some of that 17-year-old kid who told me in the pits at Lakewood Speedway, an old dirt track in Atlanta, Georgia, when he was a junior rider coming up, hey, I'm better than any of the rest of these guys. He's gone out there and proven it today. He's on the backstretch for the final time. Kenny Roberts is a half lap from an absolute Cinderella victory. He said he would come here and give it one last shot. He said, yeah, my Daytona jinx just makes me crazy. I don't know why I can't come here and win this race. I don't know why my motorcycle will never go the 200 miles distance. Today, it's going to do that. Kenny Roberts is coming home.
This is probably where the chill bumps began right here. I know when I climbed onto this west bank in the last lap in 1981, it just was a chilling experience, very similar to like having a 5-gallon bucket of ice water going down your back, Dave. After riding above that 200-degree motorcycle, it's 2 hours here in the Daytona 200.
At 180 miles an hour, live on WTBS, Kenny Roberts flashes across the victory stripe. Kenny Roberts has won the 42nd Daytona 200. History has been made. A standing ovation from the throng gathered here for one of the greatest men who ever strapped on a motorcycle racing helmet. Kenny Roberts has done what he set out to do. He has left Daytona with that victory that he so much wanted, that he so much cherished. Kenny Roberts on the cool-off lap, headed for victory lane. The celebration as Kenny Clark looks on. We are going to be coming back to hear from this man and find out perhaps if indeed there will be another Daytona 200 with a man who is coasting home and accepting the accolades of the thousands of motorcycle fans gathered here. Kenny Roberts has won Daytona. We'll be back to talk to him right after this. Helmet, who at the age of 31 has done what he came here to do. The crowd's thronging around Kenny Roberts. It may take him half a day to get to victory lane. Kenny Roberts has won the 1983 42nd annual Daytona 200, and he did it live on TBS Sports. A lot of history made here today. First time ever the race has been seen live on national television. Kenny Roberts, only the second time in his career that he's been able to run the full 200 miles distance with a healthy motorcycle. The first time he did it in 1978, he lapped the field. Today, he lapped up through third place. He is absolutely the consummate motorcycle racer, and if he can make his way to victory lane through that celebration scene that's going on right now, we're going to hear from him and find out the key question, which is whether or not he's going to come back. Two-time Daytona 200 winner Dale Singleton. You know Kenny Roberts well. You've raced against him. You've been his friend. I think you can appreciate the thrill he must have been feeling as he gave the crowd that thumbs up.
Well, that's for sure, Dave. I can relate back to 81, the last time I won the straight race. It was just the greatest feeling. There's nothing else can describe it. I think that's a couple of words that Webster left out of his dictionary, was describing what it actually feels like when you take such a prestigious title home with you here in this internationally rebound arena of motorcycle competition.
There is the second-place finisher climbing off his motorcycle. Eddie Lawson certainly proved some things here today. The young man who started his career as a dirt tracker and then switched to road racing, who developed the desire to go to Europe and be a world-class rider, and now from Upland, California at the age of 25 has become the teammate and the protege of Kenny Roberts. And as Eddie Lawson goes off to pursue that world championship, he will have the best teacher in the world, the three-time American world champ who has come home victorious here today. And it's obvious from that picture that Eddie Lawson is thinking that second place is not too shabby when you finish behind the old master. That's a happy Eddie Lawson.
No kidding. I'll tell you what, he has poured a good foundation here this afternoon, and going to Europe, being freshly campaigning the European Grand Prix competition that together him and Kenny are going to Europe to try to conquer this year. Eddie in a very, very lucrative position here with Yamaha and going to Europe with Kenny, and I'll tell you, he's got a very, very successful career ahead of him, I think, today, Dave Despain.
Lawson was the 1979 AMA Rookie of the Year. There is a two-bike sweep. They started two factory machines here, and they brought them home 1-2, and for Yamaha, that's got to be a very satisfying day after all of the troubles that have plagued them over the years. Third place, a marvelous story here as Steve Wise continues to emerge as an amazing American road racer. There's the happy Eddie Lawson. We're going to get to Kenny Roberts in just a moment. Lawson, the second place finisher. Steve Wise, just 2 years ago, had never straddled a road race motorcycle. He came to Daytona a year ago today and rode his first competitive road race. The rookie finished in 7th place and said, hey, I kind of like this. I think I'm going to get serious about it. How serious is he? Well, he finished 3rd here today and put those Honda colors in victory lane. It was an absolutely monumental 200. It was filled with so much excitement and so much drama, and the victory celebration in this one is going to go on for days and days and days. The man in the middle of that celebration is the king himself, the retiring king perhaps. Kenny Roberts is in victory lane. Let's go down to victory lane now. Ted Otto is with the 1983 Daytona 200 champion.
Kenny Roberts, you come out here 10 times and started this race. You've only finished it twice, but you won both times.
Well, what can I say? Just riding around. You know, I didn't think that race was going to go that way. I planned it all ways I could, and I didn't think it was going to go that way.
And you want to know about a jinx. They've always said you've had the jinx here at Daytona, but apparently not so now.
Well, I never thought it was a jinx myself. I just think that, you know, you ride hard and things happen. I guess Eddie got a puncture in one of the tires, and that's all it took.
A couple of times, Lawson and you were side by side, even past you a couple of trips.
Oh, yeah. It was going to be a race to the start-finish line, the way I saw it at that time. And Eddie got the puncture.
Was there any time on the race course that you had any problem with the bike at all?
Well, I don't know what lap it was early on in the race. I got sideways coming off the number 4 bank, and I thought maybe it blistered the tire, because when the tire starts cold and you heat it up that fast, sometimes you know, it overheats it. So I've had that happen before, and I thought it was that. I pulled into the pits, and it wasn't. The tire was perfect.
Kenny, we've got to ask you one question. You said you might retire. What do you say now?
Yeah, definitely.
You're still going to call it quits from Daytona?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. That's Europe definitely, but we'll wait and see on Daytona.
We'll all wait and see if Kenny Roberts does return to Daytona. Let's now go over and talk to Eddie Lawson with Andrew Marriott.
Eddie, you had that puncture, but are you content with second place?
No, I'm never content with second, but that's the way it worked out. Who knows if I would have ended up second anyway, but I just like to thank the Yamaha crew. They did a fantastic job, put a good motorcycle under me, and it turned out great, really.
Did you learn anything from Kenny? You were right with him for a lot of the time.
Yeah. I learned, you know, where I should go fast and where I shouldn't, so that helped a lot.
You're setting off on a very big adventure next week, aren't you?
Yeah, we're taking off to Europe, and it looks like we're going to be doing fairly well, I think, motorcycle-wise anyway.
Eddie, thanks very much and congratulations.
Thanks.
Kenny Roberts wins the Daytona 200 at record speed, 110.926 miles per hour. The unofficial finish order, Lawson, Wise, Gervais, and Aldana. We have still to come on TBS Sports, Superbike competition, and the spectacular motocross that ran here yesterday, and that'll all be coming back right after this.
Last 25 years, I've seen a lot of motorsports, but I can tell you that I have seen few that rank with the moments, the monumental moments for Kenny Roberts that we've all enjoyed today in WTBS Superstation live coverage of this Daytona 200. And I hope that what you get from this is that in this sport of motorcycle racing, which is not as well known in the United States as it is in Europe, that there is just as much caring and there is just as much commitment as there is in any form of sport. And that holds true as well for what we saw here just one day ago. Yesterday was the
telecast of the 1984